Hey, so as we get started, like, hey, we're diving into Christmas. Like, ready or not, here we go, and here it comes. And for some of you, like, your decorations are up. You've been planning meals. You've been planning parties. Like, the youth group is kicking off the season tonight at Tony and Marnie's house. Marnie and Tony, where are y'all sitting? Yeah, we hope that your house is standing when we're done. But we kick off that tonight with the youth group annual Christmas party. It's going to be a blast. Some of you are making lists. Lots of you have received lists. Some of you started shopping. Some of you finished your shopping. But everywhere you go, it's beginning to look and feel and sound like Christmas, except for right here. I'm not feeling it. I don't know if you've ever experienced that, but you know, we're in December, we're moving towards Christmas, we're decorated, we're singing the songs, we got the message series get ready to go, but I'm just not feeling it. And the other, like I did feel it earlier, like in September, when Walmart started selling it, right? But then some things happened, like, you know, other holidays that were between here and there, and I lost the Christmas spirit. So like the other day I was driving around, I was just talking to God, and I said, God, I'm just not feeling it. I want to feel the Christmas spirit. God, would you give me the Christmas spirit? Let me feel it. And God's like, which one? Which one? Like, do you want the tinsel tingly feeling that you love to get, that you've had ever since you were a kid, or do you want mine? I'm like, can I get both? You know, God's a big God, asking for big things. But it's real, right? It's true. A lot of people, we think of Christmas and we want the tinsel, we want the presents, we want the trees, we want the programs, we want the parties, we want the people. Not that those things are bad, but we want that. But for God, that's not the Christmas spirit. That's not what Christmas is. For God, Christmas is the story, His story, the story. And when you and I think about the Christmas story, we think about, you know, Mary and Joseph and shepherds and angels and a babe laid in a manger. But that's not the story God's thinking about, at least not in its entirety, because the birth of Jesus is not the beginning of, nor is it the end of the Christmas story. It's near the top of the arc of the Christmas story. Like when Jesus was born, I mean, the story arc, he fulfilled a lot of what God said was going to happen. And what it didn't fulfill, it pointed to. Like there are some things yet to come after the birth of Jesus that are still part of the Christmas story, like his arrest, his torture, his crucifixion, his death, his burial, his resurrection. And those parts of the Christmas story, some of those are low points for Jesus. But they're high on the Christmas story arc because they're high for us. Because they do what no care of a problem that you have, and they also give you a future. And we're going to talk about those a little bit this morning. The problem they take care of, by the way, the problem is sin. Dang, I shouldn't have come to church today. Once a pastor talks about sin, well, sorry, you're stuck with me. So the problem that these things, the Christmas story takes care of is sin. Your sin. Not the sin of the people sitting around you. Not the sin of the people, and you do this, right? We all do this. Yeah, I know I'm bad, but I'm not as bad as, right? You can fill in the blank. I'm just thankful I don't do what does. See, the problem is sin. Your sin, my sin, all of our sin. Anyone and everyone who wants their sin problem taken care of, great news. You can come to Jesus and He takes care of it for you. That's the Christmas story. He'll take care of it. But maybe you're sitting here thinking, sin problem? Yeah. I don't have a sin problem. Yes, you do. Whether you admit it or realize it or not. You inherited it. You inherited it. Your sin problem was not original to you. It was original to the original people. The two people, the very first people that God created, Adam and Eve, as He began to populate this planet, they broke relationship with God. They sinned. They broke God's rule. And the moment they did, they broke relationship with Him, and it infected every other person, everyone who's ever lived and will ever live. We're infected with that sin. If you were born on this planet, you have a sin problem, whether you want to admit it or not. And your sin problem, it's a problem because it breaks your relationship with God. You weren't born into this world with a hallelujah, I'm great with God life. You're born with a sin problem, and you can't outrun it. You can't outgive it. You can't outgood it. You can't outpray it. You can't outserve it. You can't get rid of it. It's a problem. It's a problem. It's a sin problem because it causes you to live in a broken relationship with God. So you are separated from God. And the only way you can get back into a right relationship with Him is through Jesus. That's why this story, the Christmas story, is so, so important. That's why this story is for you. And that's what the whole Bible is about, right? The whole Bible there's a whole story arc in the Bible is about God's work to win you back. The challenge is that some people aren't paying attention. They're not listening to the story. Maybe this is you. You don't want to listen to it. You're not paying attention to the story. You don't believe it. In your mind, Jesus isn't real, or He isn't right, or He certainly isn't relevant. And as for the Bible, well, come on, let's face it. Isn't the Bible some ancient book written by a bunch of ancient guys? A long time. It feels like it came from a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, right? And if the Bible, this ancient book written by ancient people from another time, if it's the story of Jesus, then why would I put any stock in Jesus? But don't forget this. Before the Bible was ever written, thousands and thousands of people put stock in Jesus. Before the Bible was ever written, people's lives were changed by Jesus. The Bible, for sure, is the story of Jesus. But all the stuff in the Bible happened before the Bible was written. Think about that. So if the Bible is your stopping point, if your excuse or your reason, well, I don't want to follow Jesus, or I don't want to believe in Jesus because I don't believe the Bible, start over at a different starting point. Before the Bible, because before the Bible, there was Jesus. Jesus was real. History proves that. And the story of Jesus, it isn't a story in the Bible. Like there are lots of stories in the Bible. Adam and Eve, Noah, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Naomi, and Ruth, Esther, David, Solomon, Mary, Joseph, the apostles, Paul. There are lots of stories in the Bible, but they're background. They're minor characters. And knowing those stories never saved anybody. Their stories, they're for sure part of the larger story, this wonderful narrative, but they're background figures. But Jesus, He is the story. Maybe a better way to say it is because Jesus is real. So the fact that we have the Bible proves that Jesus was real. Listen, no one was going to write what they wrote and stake their lives on it, risk their lives for it, give their lives because of it. No one's going to write what they wrote and do that unless He was real. The fact that we have the Bible proves Jesus was real. The fact that what Jesus claimed actually came true proves He was right. And the fact that He changed thousands and thousands of lives proves He was relevant. But is Jesus still real? Is Jesus still right? Is Jesus still relevant? Because let's face it, that was 2,000 years ago. A lot has changed. I didn't see anybody here riding up on a donkey. We'd have way more parking if y'all rode donkeys. You could fit 2 or 3 per stall out there, right? But the world's changed a lot. Maybe Jesus was just a really good compass for the people back then. Is Jesus still right? Is He still real? Is He still relevant? So, welcome to the Jesus Project. Welcome to the Jesus Project. We're going to take a look at real life examples, real life testimonies, real lives changed by Jesus. For the next 6 months, I'm inviting you on a journey to recognize who Jesus really is and what He means for your life. And some of you did not hear that last sentence. You're like, 6 months? You stopped after that, right? Your ears started, 6 months. 6 months, that's a long series. Turn to your neighbor and say, that's a long series. And you're not wrong, it's a long series. But the good news is it's broken up into bite-sized chunks. It's a really long, like this is through May. But every month is a mini series. How cool is that? Every one is about Jesus. Because after all, isn't he the star of the show? Isn't he the reason we do everything we do? So everyone's a mini series leading into this great big series called the Jesus Project. And listen, we are going to just spend these 6 months on Jesus. And Jesus. And all these mini-series are aimed at letting you experience Jesus and hopefully coming to a place where you commit your life to him, beginning right now as we head into Christmas. What a better place to start than his birth. That's right. But here's why this is so important. And what I'm about to say next, and for the next few moments, it's going to offend some of you. Some of you are going to want to get up and walk out. It's going to make some of you angry. Hopefully wake some of you up. But here it is. Here's why this is so important. Some of you do not have a relationship with Jesus. Some of you do not have a relationship with Jesus. You have never dealt with your sin problem. You haven't. And when you die, that's going to be a big problem. Some of you think, oh, I've dealt with my problem. I go to church. I've served in church. I've dealt with it. Listen, when you stand before God on the day of judgment, which you will and I will, we will, when you stand before God on the day of judgment, he's not going to look at you and say, let's see, were you a member of a church? He doesn't care about that like we do. There's one roll, R-O-L-L. There's one roll you want to make sure your name is on. It's called the Lamb's Book of Life. And some of you, whether you're here in person or you're online listening, some of you, your names are not yet written in the Lamb's Book of Life. But Rich, I've been going to church since I was a kid. I grew up going to church. I can sing at least one verse of every song we sing in church. I know most of the words and most of the prayers we ever learned in church. Listen, the traditions of the church, the prayers of the church, the songs of the church are not Jesus. That's right. Don't confuse them. Don't confuse them. They are not Jesus, and they have never saved anybody because they're not Jesus. And so just growing up in church and going to church and singing the songs doesn't save you. It doesn't. In fact, some of you who grew up in church, some of you who've been coming to church, some of you are so unsure about your faith. And you're so unsure about your future in eternity. You're so unsure about Jesus that your family doesn't even, but your hand is on the doorknob. And you're one step away from exiting your faith. Don't do it. Not yet. Hang out with us for 6 months. Let God tell you his story. Hang out with us for 6 months. Let God tell you his story. And I get it. I know why your hand's on the doorknob. I know why you're exiting. You grew up in church, but then you grew up. You were shadowing your parents. You were riding in their faith, but then you grew up. And life happened. And life got in the way and you got busy, you got distracted because, oh my goodness, the things of the world, yeah, they are tempting and they are gratifying. Yeah, we all know that. But today could be the day. And this could be the time when you turn around and you listen for the first time to the real story of who God is and how much God loves you. And what Jesus has done for you. And if you're like, well, that's not me. I'm not walking out of my faith. Okay, then walk into it deeper than you ever have before. Take these 6 months and explore like where you've never gone. Gosh, I had a Star Wars and I got a Star Trek where no one has gone before, right? But explore where you've never gone before. Listen, I'm going to be just straight out honest with you. I have one goal over these 6 months. One goal for you. In this entire series, it is for you to experience Jesus, period. The real Jesus, without the church getting in the way, without the world getting in the way. And so we're going to present Jesus to you as best as we can do. And we're going to get out of the way and give you access to him, and I hope you'll give him access to you, because he wants to do some amazing things in your life. He wants to take care of your sin problem, like once and for all. He does. You can sing the songs all day long, but when you let Jesus do what he wants to do in you, you'll sing them different. You won't sit in your chair or stand in your space. You'll be up here worshiping, because nothing's too good for your God. So for 6 months, that's what we're going to be doing. Turn to your neighbor and say, that's a long series. But tell him it's worth it. It's going to be so worth it. Man, my hope is that you'll just experience Jesus so he can have access to you. Like if you've ever been wondering about Jesus, if you've ever felt distant from Jesus, these next 6 months are built for you, and it all starts today. So welcome to the Jesus Project. And to kick us in, take a look at this. Oh my gosh, he's so handsome. That's my dog. That's Finley. Finley's our dog. He is like 75 pounds of golden goodness, wearing a cone of shame. Yeah, he got an infection in his ears. He kept scratching. He just tore his fur off, tore his skin. So we went to the vet and got the medicine, had to put the cone of shame around his head. And that's from like a week ago. He's still wearing it. He's still another week or so. And at first, I'll be very honest, it was awkward and weird and uncomfortable for him and for us because he kept bumping into stuff. He didn't know he had this, on his head. All of a sudden, his head's like 4 times wider than it ever was before. And he would like bump into the coffee table. He would knock stuff off the coffee table. He got caught in doorways, y'all, on door frames, on counters and corners. And it was hard for the first week or so. But then you know what happened? He started getting used to it. He started learning to navigate with it. He started like giving himself more space. He began to live with it. He's, my head needs this much room now. And he actually learned how to walk backwards really, really well, because it didn't catch on stuff. So now he'll go into a room, instead of turning around, he'll just walk backwards out of it. It doesn't catch in the door frame anymore. He's a brilliant dog. He's really, really smart. And he's just learned to get comfortable and live with that thing on him now. He learned to go backwards. He's just good. Much the same way that you do with your sin. Boy, at first it felt a little awkward. Like, I know I shouldn't do this. I don't think this is right. But you did it anyway. And you kept hitting it on stuff. But not for long. Because we're really good at this, because we're really smart. We learn to live with it. We get comfortable with it. We allow it to become part of almost who we are. In fact, Finley, he wears that cone, and we take it off to put the medicine on. And you know what? He doesn't even mind us putting it back on. In fact, he wags his tail. Like he wants it back on. I don't know why, but he wants it back on. And one thing about that cone collar thing, it's really hard from our perspective and for his. It's really, really hard to cuddle with a dog wearing a cone. I don't know if you've ever tried, especially a big dog with a big cone. It just doesn't work. He keeps coming up and wanting to, because he's like a lap dog. He's 75 pounds, a lap dog. And he's not now. And in fact, he keeps knocking stuff off. We have to keep him at a distance. When you're letting your sin, when you're wearing your sin, and it becomes so comfortable to you, it still makes God uncomfortable. And you can't get close to God. Oh, God will still love you like crazy. Like I tell Finley all the time, I love you, I love you, I love you. You're a great dog. Just get away from me. Listen, God loves you like crazy. But when you're wearing your sin and not doing anything about it, in fact, sometimes you get so comfortable with it, it just makes you go backwards. You can't get close to God. And God can't get close to you. He wants to. But as long as you're wearing your sin, it won't happen. It won't all the time. This is for now, but it's not forever. This is going to be coming off. As soon as we get this taken care of, it's coming off. I think God's saying the same thing to you. Hey, this is not forever. You've got your sin, but it's not forever. And we look at Finley and we think, I can't wait to get that cone off his head because he can't even play catch right now. He can't pick up a ball because the cone, he puts his head down, but the cone hits the ground before his mouth does. And so he can't reach it. He tries, he just pushes around with the cone. It's like so sad watching him do this. Like we can look at him, we know how much fun he's going to have when the cone comes off. We know how free he'll be when the cone comes off. We know how much better he'll be at things when the cone comes off. And God's like, hey, when your sin comes off, guess what? You'll be so free. You want to do these things right now, but you can't because their sin is in your way. But if you just let me heal you, fix you, work on you, we'll take it off. And you won't believe the change will happen in your life. God is so ready to do that. We are so ready to get that daggum cone off our dog's head. God is ready to do this. God is ready to do this for you. Like if you want to take the sin out of your life, God's like, good, so do I. So do I. It doesn't have to last forever. I made a way to make things right, and that's the Christmas story. It's exactly what he said thousands of years before Jesus was even born. Like long before shepherds and angels, long before a virgin got pregnant and a birth happened in a stall, God told the people what was coming. He was. And when his people were living far from him after decisions that left them devastated and actions that left them alienated and choices that put a chasm between him and them, he told them what he was going to do. To answer their questions, to alleviate their fears, to settle their doubts, God began to make this story. The story that he knew since the moment sin entered creation. The story he knew they needed. The story he knows you need and I need. He began to make his story known. God began to tell his story hundreds of years before Jesus was born. Exactly what he was going to do. And it's the story of Christmas. God made it known through what we call prophecy. Prophecy is like when God speaks to a person, like, Robin, God's going to speak to you, and he's going to say, Robin, I want you to tell all the people in your section this. That makes Robin a prophet. So a prophecy is when she's like, bring it. She's ready. Prophecy is when God speaks to someone and says, go tell my people this. This is what I'm about to do, or this is what I'm going to do. And a lot of times when God gave a prophecy, there was a now and future meaning to it. A now and a future meaning to it. And so he spoke through prophets. And some of these prophecies, they were hard. They were hard for the people to receive. There were consequences to their bad decisions. And there are people that you know, and there are people that I know, who hear that and they say, but if God is a loving God. I don't know why they sound like that, but they sound like that in my head. Okay, so just go with it. But if God is a loving God like you say he is, then how could he be so hard on his people? How many of you are parents? Show of hands. How many of you are parents? You know the answer, right? You know the answer to this already. You know what's coming. You have family values as a family, right? And your family values have led to family rules to uphold your family values. And when your kids break your family rules, you don't say, oh, no worries. This is more like a suggestion anyway. I hope you don't. That's not parenting, right? That's not good parenting. But you have family rules, and you expect your kids to follow your family rules, and when they don't, there is discipline. And your family rules may not be like other family rules that you know. Have your kids tried to play that off on you yet? Okay, like Ian is allowed to do that. Why can't I? Dad let her do that. How come I can't? They'll play other family rules because those are not our rules. We have different rules in that family. In fact, you look at some of the kids your kids hang out with, I don't know if they have any rules or values at all or not. I don't know in their family, but you do. And when your kids break your family rules, you discipline them. Not because you don't love them, but because you do love them. We get that. God's the same way. When God's people, when God's kids broke the family rules, he disciplined them. He cared enough, he loved enough to discipline them. So sometimes the prophecies, they were hard. God would say things like, oh, hey, for a while, you're not going to be able to have that. Hey, for the next season of your life, I'm going to let you soak in this for a while because it's a consequence, and you've got to learn that what you're doing is dangerous to you and to our relationship. And so God would give hard prophecies to the people. They were hard to hear. But other prophecies, man, they were wonderful. They talked about God's provision and God's blessing. And the best ones, they were about the Savior, about the rescuer. They called him the Messiah. And the prophecies were about the Messiah who was to come into the world to save people from their sin problem, from the consequences of sin, to take care of their sin problem. And God didn't just say, hey, there's someone's coming. He spelled it out for them in the prophecies. In fact, God told them exactly where the Messiah would be born. Listen to this. This is from a prophet named Micah, hundreds of years before this even happened. Listen. He said, but you, Bethlehem Ephrathah, though you are small among the clans of Judah, out of you will come for me one who will be ruler over Israel, whose origins are from old, from ancient times. See, with that prophecy, God put a pin on the map and said, hundreds of years from now, you all won't be around anymore, but your ancestors will, and they'll remember I said this to you, that this is exactly where the Messiah will be born. Bethlehem Ephrathah. Now, the reason he said Bethlehem Ephrathah was to distinguish it between the other Bethlehem. There were two Bethlehems back then. One in the north, just outside of Nazareth. One in the south, just outside Jerusalem. Up north, Jesus grew up in Nazareth, but he wasn't born in that Bethlehem. He was born in this Bethlehem, Bethlehem Ephrathah. He used the name Ephrathah. We don't use that, right? Can you imagine singing some of the Christmas songs? Oh, little town of Bethlehem Ephrathah. It just doesn't roll off the tongue really well, right? But that was the ancient name of that city, Ephrathah. And so God distinguished it from the other northern Bethlehem. Bethlehem Ephrathah, this is exactly, precisely. So don't get confused about the two Bethlehems, people. There's just the one where the Messiah will be born. And God told them that hundreds and hundreds of years before it ever happened. Now, that same city of Bethlehem had another name. It was called the City of David. Why do you think it was called the City of David? Because David was born there. That was his hometown. You know, we're talking David and Goliath David. David, who became the greatest king of Israel. David, this was David's hometown. He was born there. Just imagine that for a moment. Think about it. The fields around this town of Bethlehem were where David, the great King David, took his father's sheep to graze. But even with all the David fame of this Bethlehem, by the time of Jesus, the population of Bethlehem was between 300 and 600 people. Oh, little town of Bethlehem, right? It's true. It was a small little town, but God said, even though you are so little, something so big is going to come out of you. Even though you look insignificant, and you're a staple in the atlas. You all remember what atlases were? Some of you are like, no, I have no idea. It was a map on paper. Even though you didn't even make my ways, right? My ways map. Even though you seem so insignificant, the most important thing the world will have ever known to that point is going to happen in you. God was going to touch down in Bethlehem. This one who was born from ancient times, and the word in the Hebrew there is a great word. This doesn't mean like in the past, it means from before the past. Like ancient times, before time, forever time. This one who was going to be born was without end. He's everlasting forever. So this is God, the beginning and the end, coming in the flesh in this little podunk town of Bethlehem Ephrathah. So God told them exactly where it was going to happen. He also told them how it would happen. He said this through another prophet, Isaiah, 700 years before Jesus was born. He said this, therefore, the Lord himself will give you a sign. The virgin will conceive and give birth to a son, and will call him Emmanuel. And this announcement could not have come at a better time. By this time in history, when 700 years before Jesus, when God gave this prophecy, God's people were already screwed up, right? They've already dismissed God. They've run away from God. They've just been living their lives without God. And by this time, they've broken into two kingdoms. The northern kingdom was called Israel. The southern kingdom was called Judah. That's where Jerusalem was. And at this point in history, King Ahaz down in the south, they're kind of the remnant of God's people. They still really weren't following God. But the northern kingdom, teamed up its army with the army of Syria. And these two armies, combined armies, were a powerful force, and they were coming down to attack Judah, the smaller kingdom, and just run them over. And when King Ahaz from Judah down south heard that these armies were amassing and coming to defeat them, he and the entire, all his people, the entire kingdom, began to tremble in fear. And that's exactly when God sent the prophet Isaiah to speak these words to him. He said, God's going to give you a sign. Like, even though you've deserted me and ignored me and dismissed me, even though you've turned away from me, I am going to rescue you. And it was a message, it was a prophecy like so many others that had a right now meaning and a future meaning. Hey, don't worry about those armies coming. I'll take care of them. I am with you right now to protect you. But he also gave them this future word. In the future, I'm going to save you. Not just from these armies coming down, I'm going to save you for eternity. And it's going to look like this. There's going to be a virgin who's going to conceive and have a baby. It would have blown their minds. That doesn't happen, right? Go down and visit McGee Women's Hospital and ask them how many virgins they had come in lately giving birth. 0. It just doesn't happen. Yet this is what God said would happen. And it wouldn't be just any baby, a baby who was literally God with us right now and God with us in the future. That's what Emmanuel means. God was saying, I am going to save you right now in the battle you're in the valley you're in the hard thing you're going through, but I'm also going to do something super big. I'm going to save you for eternity. This is just God telling his story, the story arc. You see it. Hey, here's where it's going to start, and then it's going to happen this way. He's just telling his story. But he wasn't done. Listen to this. And most of you have heard this before, this prophecy, still from the prophet Isaiah. For to us a child is born. To us a son is given, and the government will be on his shoulders. And he will be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. Of the greatness of his government and peace, there will be no end. He will reign on David's throne and over his kingdom, establishing and upholding it with justice and righteousness from that time on and forever. I don't see it. Do you? Look, you can look at our government. I don't see Jesus reigning. Do you? Look at the governments around the world. I don't see Jesus reigning. Do you? Maybe we're not paying attention. There's a future promise in this. There's a day when Jesus is going to reign. He's coming back whether you believe in him or not. And he's going to come back and he's going to reign over all of creation. And every knee will bow. And every tongue confess, willingly or unwillingly, that Jesus is Lord of all. Jesus. So there's this future promise. But is there something you can hold on to today in this as well? Do you see Jesus reigning? Pay attention. If you pay attention to the story, you will. Every time a person is healed, every time cancer is defeated, every time someone in fear finds courage, every time that you see a family get reunited and reconciled, every time you see fear replaced by strength, or people who mourn all of a sudden find joy, every time those you know who are in despair begin to shout out his praise, Jesus is reigning. He does reign right now if you pay attention to the story. It's a now and it's a future prophecy. Today, we talk about 3 prophecies today. Just 3. There are more than 300 prophecies given about Jesus, about the Messiah. And Jesus fulfilled every single one of them. They all came true in him. Through all these prophecies, God was setting the stage for something big, a move towards us, a move towards you. A move towards you, to be with you. And the anticipation and the expectation rose with every prophecy. This is God saying, hey, here I am and here I come. This is God telling you his story. But better than that, so much better than that, this is really God telling you your story, of what it can be, of what you really want it to be, if you want that story. This can be your story. All you have to do is let Jesus write it for you. This is your story. It can be if you give your life to Jesus. Are you paying attention to God's story? If you are, you can have him. If you aren't, you're going to miss him. Listen, there were a lot of people expecting the Messiah, Jesus, and they missed him. Don't be like them. Don't miss him. Not just born at Christmas with lights and tinsel and trees, but don't miss him. Don't miss Jesus, the one who can save you from your sin problem. Maybe today, for the first time, you paid attention. Maybe today, something that was said clicked. Maybe today, you want to make this the day that you join your story to his. He wants you to. He's ready for you to. He came to earth for you to do exactly this. And you know you need to. The good news is God has already moved in your direction. So the question is, will you move in his? So what we're going to do is give you that opportunity. This could be the day. You say, God, I used to believe. I thought I did. God, I want church to be more than. God, I don't want to walk out on. God, I want to know more about who you are. Jesus, I need you. Maybe this is for the first time that you've ever heard about Jesus or want to receive Jesus. Or maybe this is for the 30th time you've received Jesus. Nothing wrong with that. But today can be your day. You let God pick up the pen and begin to write your story into his story. So let's do this. Let's just bow where we are. Just bow, everybody, every head bowed, all eyes closed. No one's going to be looking. People online, close your eyes. We're going to trust you to do this. If today is the day that you want to begin to follow Jesus for the first time, or today you want to say, Jesus, I've been following you, but not great. I want to do better. Whatever your storyline is, just lift your hand where you are. No one's looking. Just lift your hand where you are. If today's the day, let's make today. If today's the day, I'm going to ask everybody to pray this with me out loud. But if this is your day to be new in Jesus, then just mean the words you're about to pray. Just pray. Everybody pray this out loud with me. Jesus, thank you for coming to this earth for me. I know my story. And it's not the right story. I want your story to be my story. So today, Jesus, I give you the pen to write my story into your story. Jesus, I repent of my sin. I tell you I've done things wrong. And only you can make me right. So start this in me today. And let me live a life with you. In your name, Jesus, I pray. Amen. All right, for those of you who just did that for the first time, welcome home. For those of you who've done that for the 10th or 20th time, welcome back.